it didn't even matter what the script was. Night is one of my big heroes, and I was, just the excitement of just opening it up and having only 3 hours to read it felt like Mission Impossible or something.
I'm trying to get you to let go. Eventually, you get to where the characters are, which is, I'll never be able to answer all these problems.
We had so much in favor with this film to create the characters. First because, okay, Guy and Priska are going through a very difficult situation in their matrimony, Guy is a person that is very, just to draw broad colors, is very afraid and a bit anal retentive, he's a little bit scared of things, tense in that sense. Not aggressive, but kind of, not going through a good period in his life.
It seems like the most open space, this huge beach in this cove, and then as things become more and more weird and more threatening, and they can't leave, it becomes very claustrophobic for these individuals on this beach, and you can see them panicking and they're trying to get out. There's no doors to leave, and that suffocation the audience feels. And what used to be beautiful now becomes oppressive and dangerous. The water, which looks so beautiful at first, just becomes death to you. That slow turn from something that was safe to something that's unsafe was a beautiful goal of ours in the movie.
It's an extremely unusual and gripping read. It's not quite like anything else I've ever read before. And the character itself is so contradictory and so difficult to get a handle on. It took me a couple of reads to really work out how I felt about him.
But Night, more than other directors, I find to be very collaborative, I guess is the best word that I can say, and open. I find him to be, as much choreographed as he is, I find him to be really open. And he's precise about what he's precise about. He's very precise about his words that he wrote. He's very precise about where the camera's going. He wants to see you. I find him to be the perfect combination of things, of directors, where he's both, trying to get you to do things very specifically, but also if you have an idea that you've thought about for a while, he's more than willing to embrace it. Night really is looking out for your best interest, and Night really has the whole picture, and is also with you in that moment.
I was covered in sand and sweat the entire time, so it just made it feel a little bit more real, a little bit more grounded, and being able to go for a swim at the end of the day. I just think that's what comes with working in nature, is that kind of you get you're so vulnerable to the environment. You feel a lot smaller, and I think Night might have felt that he really had to bow down to nature, to all the to the rain or the wind or the sun or waves or whatever it was. We were a bunch of people working, around nature in a way, so it kind of put things into perspective a little bit.
Night has such an incredible clarity of vision, and at the same time is so open to receiving ideas and receiving thoughts and offers. And that's what makes, in my opinion, his work timeless. So it's an honor to be here working on old, and I truly believe this is something truly special, man.
I think it's ultimately, if we were talking about a genre, it would probably be in the sci-fi thriller genre. But all of the films have a very strong dramatic film at the center of it. That's really the engine underneath, the emotional engine, but the clothes are the genre. And I think from Sixth Sense on, that kind of fusion of drama and thriller, has been the one that feels satisfying to me.
He's very committed to that understanding of what he feels about the movie. But this commitment is interesting, you know, it's this figuring it out in his head, you know, and thinking about it. And the things that I'm really fascinated by how Night works is he's got a great capacity of being assertive, which is something that is so useful, you know, and so necessary. Being very assertive, being very good at always trying to dissect the specificity that's needed in a way, because that specificity opens up for the ambiguity or for the let's say the complexity of the characters and of the story, and I think that's something that he does really, really well. And definitely his work is his mise en scène, you know, where he puts the camera, the way he goes around, the way he trusts silences, the way he trusts the moments, the way he engages with the tension, the way he creates that is truly remarkable.
The main way I prepared was I just thought a lot about my family and about the love I have, particularly for my little sister, because MADDOX is the big sister to Trent. I just thought a lot about my sister and how much I love her. And I thought about when you're younger, your relationship with your parents is just that, they're your parents, and you don't really have to think about how to be with them. So I think, yeah, just like when you get, the older you get, you start to, things become deeper, like colours become more complicated, and MADDOX realises there's so much emotion, so much feelings. Everybody is, the older you get, you learn more, but you're still a child, really. You're still figuring things out. And MADDOX is such an empath. She really feels things for people.
I never wanted you to feel safe. I wanted you to be figuring out something, then another thing comes on you, and now you're trying to figure out two things, and now a third thing comes on you, and now you go, okay, I think I got these three things, then another thing, and another thing, and then I'm trying to get you to let go. Eventually you get to where the characters are, which is, I'll never be able to answer all these problems.
He's got very strong ideas about the way he wants to shoot it, the way he composes the shots have been pre-planned, and sometimes the idea of the way to play the scene that you have in your head is very different from the way it's composed. And the way it ends up being physically composed sometimes diametrically opposed the way you've geographically, not just geographically, that means emotionally, because how close you stand to someone, whether you're facing away from them, towards them, these things have their emotional causes. But what I think has given us a lot of faith is that occasionally when you're feeling confused about the way a scene is being constructed physically, you'll get a glimpse of the shot and you'll realize that the storytelling is more clear in the frame than it feels to you. And once that became familiar, that experience, we started to trust more and more.
Knight says there's hunters and there are gatherers. And he's a hunter where he knows what he wants, and then the gatherers, they're the directors that turn up on the day and they go, oh, that would be nice, or that could be cool, or Knight's the opposite of that, he knows. And I think I'm like, my tendency is more towards, I mean, I'm not a director, but as an actor I'm more towards gathering. Oftentimes I'll show up on the day and I'll have prepared, but I don't know, sometimes I'm not quite so direct as that. And so for me it's, I have to give a lot of trust to Knight that he knows what he wants, he knows what's going to work, and he knows what it'll look like. And so I kind of have to surrender to that, being so choreographed, and go, he knows what's going to be good, he knows what's going to look good, so I trust completely in him.
The kind of very theatrical setting that this is, because we have a beach, we have a sea over there, we have a fourth wall, let's say. We have a wall here behind us, left and right, that's all you have. So there's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to change kind of energy in a location, It's a very straightforward kind of strong components of tragedy, you know, and that was something that was very, very interesting, because once you put that and those elements at play, well, you can come up with anything, and you can really come up with any convention of any, you know, any spell or mystery or sorcery that's going on, and so it challenged me in that sense. Like when reading it, thinking, well, how are we going to do this? You know, how are we going to be able to achieve this?
I think audiences can sense the author's value system, and they can, no matter how dark I get, and boy do I get dark. I mean, I've done things in movies that you just can't do, right? You just can't do. I kill everybody, right? There's like, you could be a star, you could be a baby, you could be whatever. You're not safe in these movies. And the reason that I can do that and the audience goes with me is I think ultimately they're feeling that the person telling the story is hopeful and cherishes family, cherishes love, and, you know, really aspires to believe in the universe is a benevolent place.
In my mind, mid-sized sedan is, he's a musician, specifically a hip-hop musician. And I envision him, in my mind, as a very conscious lyricist. People who I drew inspiration from for this character are some of my favorite artists, like J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, Nipsey Hussle, to name a few. These are artists in the real world who, in my mind, are so conscious and so thoughtful, and have a real sense of who they are. And I drew a lot of inspiration from artists, those artists themselves, and other artists similar, to mold this character. He's a very thoughtful person, mid-sized sedan. Maybe to his detriment, maybe to his benefit, but it's such a great character to explore.
People might think that they are on one side, but they're driven by forces underneath them that you don't know what you secretly believe sometimes. People do not know. They might think they're on the side of good, but they might have impulses that are subterranean, that are different. And sometimes these things come out in madness. In my experience, quite often, that unresolved fears, conflicts spill out in a very dangerous and frightening way.
Knight he's a real family man. He had his daughters here, his whole family came here. So I really appreciated that feeling that there was family, it was a family environment, and having the cast, it's such a wonderful cast, especially like Vicky and Gael, they really took on a very parental role for me. So I felt really supported, that there were people I could go to if I wasn't feeling secure in any way, and having Eliza and Alex and Abby, just the whole cast was so wonderful. So that was a really amazing for me. I don't think I've gotten as close with the cast in any other, I feel so like we're really tight with this cast. It's like a very unique experience for me.
The fact that I got to read Knight's script was so exciting, because we had 3 hours to read it. You know, he's very protective, and I meant I might be, you know, either getting this part or I might be, you know, getting closer to it. And so for me, at a certain point, it didn't even matter what the script was. Knight is one of my big heroes, and I was, you know, just the excitement of just opening it up and having only 3 hours to read it felt like Mission Impossible or something. But then it just happened to be that I was just sobbing at the end of this movie and screaming out loud and laughing. It was probably the most animated, the most outwardly responsive I've ever been to just reading something. I mean, it was like it's just such an incredibly powerful, moving, and thought-provoking story.
As your body's growing, the matrix of your mind is changing as well. So you are a 40-year-old man. You're taking in the situation as a 40-year-old man takes in the complexity of the way you're sitting and the way you looked at your watch. I'm catching all of that. Whereas if I was 12, I wouldn't catch that you glanced at your watch, or you actually a little bit, there's something disingenuous about what you just said. But at 40, you can feel it. You can feel those colors and the complexity. You don't have the life experience. So there's that gap in the life experience, but the matrix and how you're taking in the world is complex and subtle. So that was very specific for the actors. I said, don't make it seem like you are 12 and now you're taking in information like a 12-year-old. You're 40. And you're trying to make sense of all the information that your 40-year-old mind is telling you. It's slowed down and it's telling you to focus in on these kind of things. You're not firing thoughts like a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old. You're not all over the place and distracted by the light and kind of go, oh, I'm hungry. No. You're not doing that. You're taking in information in a certain way. That's different than in other movies where somebody grows really quickly, let's say, for example. So that was a really interesting task for the actors to get a hold of.
And it's like musical notes as well, and like musical keys. I mean, I speak on a different tonality, and my character speaks on a different tonality than maybe someone that would come from another country, definitely. So it is you get also those good things, whilst doing playing with actors from different parts of the world. You get different musical scales, and you put them together, and it works,